officials and policy professionals. What we want to do today is just engage one another in a constructive dialogue about how we can ameliorate some of the challenges that are facing our communities, both locally and globally. We want to have a facilitated discussion where you guys are able to share strategies with one another, utilize the resources that exist at your table as well as in this room, and also want to share with you some resources from DC-based foundations and participants with the knowledge to talk about these issues. So on the table to my right, to many of your left, there are some resources from some policy groups such as the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation that we can utilize in having this discussion. What we're going to do before we start our formal program is ask that you guys engage one another, which I know some of you guys have already started, in conversations about the critical issues facing young professionals, young policy professionals, and just minority populations in general at your communities. You'll see that you have on your tables some index cards and a pen. We would like for you guys to collectively decide what issue is the most critical for you, and then to talk through what the challenges are and what some proposed solutions are and should be. So we're going to do that for about 20 minutes while you guys are able to eat, and then we're going to move into a more structured program. At this point, I want to introduce Ms. Jackie Robinson, who is where? Oh, she's sitting here. Who is a young elected official. She is a councilwoman from Pasadena, California. All right, for California. And for young elected professionals.
Hi, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Jackie Robinson. I'm a council member from the city of Pasadena, which is right outside of Los Angeles in California. This is my second year of being in office. I was elected in April 2007, and I'm the youngest sitting council member right now, the youngest female in Pasadena's history. Thank you. I just wanted to thank everyone for being here today, and thank Dr. Tolson and the Emerging Leaders Series, Chris Cobb, who's running around here somewhere. He's the one that's responsible for planning today's event, and I think he's done a wonderful job. I was able to assist Chris with getting the other young elected officials here today as a result of my relationship with the Young Elected Officials Network. And it's actually the brainchild of Andrew Gillum, who wasn't able to be here today, and also Alicia Thomas Morgan from Georgia. They started the organization a couple years ago because they wanted a network of young elected officials that could talk about issues that we have as members of our respective governmental bodies. So at this time, I'd just like to have the other members of the Yale Network, and even if you're not a member of the Yale Network, just have the other elected officials stand just so you can be recognized. So with that, I look forward to our discussion today, and please do participate because we want to be able to take this information back to our respective bodies and be able to further develop the conversation today. Thank you.
Really quickly, I would like to thank our sponsor for without their support, this wouldn't be possible, and invite our sponsor from Northrop Grumman to come up and say a few words. Y'all look so nice. Give yourselves a round of applause.
Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're from. On behalf of Northrop Grumman, I'm Sandra Evers Manley, president of the Northrop Grumman Foundation, and we're honored to be able to support today's program. Now, more than ever, we need you as emerging leaders to be the here and now. So have a great session, and just remember, let's continue to bring about the change. Thank you very much.
I want to say a few more words about their support of this program. I think it's this program is really coming together, looking very attractive, and the food is great. But we had planned this without having any sponsorship. and we were able to get the president to go ahead and allow us to have it without having the funds. Northrop Grumman came on right at the last minute, and they decided to not only sponsor the food that you're eating right now, but they're also going to sponsor a report that we're going to put together after this is over. They're going to give us money to organize the index cards that you all write, the footage that we're going to get on camera, and put it in the report where we can talk about the voices of young elected officials and policy professionals. So I want you all to give them one more round of applause.
Okay, so once more, if you guys don't have index cards or pens on your table, I'm going to walk around in a second. Just raise your hand and let me know. But again, let's spend the next 15 minutes or so, since I've talked into your 20 minutes, talking about the critical issues facing us in our communities, and then we're going to talk through some solutions as well. Enjoy your breakfast.
I told her that after the 20 minutes, when we were about to start the discussion, maybe at the end. Congressman Meek might come. Last year, somebody was getting more attention from the Hillary campaign. They kind of felt that estrangement from the people because they were so they had to work a little extra hard to make sure they stayed relevant. Real quick.
Good afternoon again. We're going to go ahead and get started with our discussion. But before that, we'd like to recognize again the sponsors of today's Emerging Leaders Luncheon, Northrop Grumman. If we could please have them stand, and everyone please give them a round of applause.
They missed that.
Oh, I'm sorry. We want to thank again Northrop Grumman for being the sponsors of today's Emerging Leaders Luncheon. And so if you could please stand so we can recognize you. Northrop Grumman. Thank you very much for your support today. So we're going to begin by having a representative from each table stand. Please give us your name and what your affiliation is if you're an elected official. As well as if you're a policymaker, and just give us a 1-minute synopsis of some of the major topics that your table covered.
So people can see you.
And Chris is going to walk around with the microphone.
Hi, good morning. My name is Lisa Wilmore. I'm actually from Detroit, Michigan. I'm not an official, elected official or a leader. I'm just a business owner here attending the caucus for my first time. We had a discussion about affordable housing. We talked about just job opportunities, our environment, the economy, things like that. And we narrowed in on a discussion of age discrimination. Of course, we got into a little discussion about my city and some of the things that have been going on there with our mayor and some of the comments about age. So I thought it would be a relevant topic, talking about young emerging leaders. So I say all this to say it really shouldn't matter what your age is. If you have mentorship and guidance, there is no ceiling that you can't climb, that you can't break through. Mm-hmm. So I say all this to say, we as young, I'm not young anymore, but for the young and emerging leaders here, don't let anyone deter you from what you need to do, becoming an emerging leader, because there's going to be people around you that you can reach out to help mentor you and uplift you. So there shouldn't be a such thing as age discrimination. So
thank you for those comments, and I'm sure that many of the young elected officials, including myself in here, have a story or two or five that they can tell about, age discrimination and some of the challenges we faced, even running for our respective positions. Next table.
Hi, my name is Athena McQuarrie, and what we talked about was things that were affecting our economy, education, as far as different ways the information is provided. Someone was talking about how in his school the way they were taught to prepare for the ACTs versus how people were taught out in the suburbs and other counties, and just talking about how things are not fair or things are not equal, and it affects you as far as how you get a job, the type of job you get, what type of money you make on that job. So that's what we discussed.
Thank you. Next table.
Who's the representative from this table? I'm Grace Kenna, a researcher at AIR and the youngest person at this table, therefore didn't have a choice about speaking. Our conversation centered around the access to educational opportunities and career paths for young people. So basically, just making sure that young people have the opportunity to pursue different fields, whether that be white-collar fields or blue-collar fields, whatever is appropriate for that individual, just as long as they have the opportunity to pursue something and succeed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. My name is Exodi Rowe, and I represent United States Congressman Jerry McNerney. It's the Central Valley in California. And our central issue that we talked about, we narrowed it down. We think education is the most pressing issue that our community faces. And we had 3 quick points. One, from a public policy standpoint, No Child Left Behind is going to be reauthorized in 2009. And we've heard several school districts, several teachers complain about No Child Left Behind. But what we said is that, and please, we would like for you all to chime in at a later point, there needs to be some type of national standards. Because every other industrialized nation in the world has national standards, and their students outperform American students every single year. And that's a crisis because we live in a global economy and we're not keeping up. The second thing that we said is early education. There's enough data and research that says that early education, like Head Start programs, those make a big difference, but it's not a national standard for all students to have to go through some type of early education. The last solution that we had was that students should have to, that districts should be represented of the demographics of the population. I gave the example of how where I'm from in the Central Valley, all my teachers were white. But unfortunately, California's a very diverse place, but that's not reflected in the population. And it does make a difference when students have a diverse population of teachers. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Table rep.
My name is Gregory George. Actually a student at Temple University in Philadelphia. Some of the things that we discussed, straightforward, complex issue, but simply financial security and economic independence, seeing really poor African Americans or even middle class being able to keep jobs, gain and keep employment, just to provide, just to keep money within our communities. So,
Thank you.
Table wrap.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sam Pierre, and I'm the Brooklyn South Director for Congressman Ed Towns, and also a county committeeman in the County of Kings in Brooklyn, New York. Please be patient. I have a lot on this list. First, I would like to introduce Ms. Vanessa Brown, who, if we have any Philly people here, who's right now running for the state Senate, so we know we got to support her. Got to put that commercial out there first. Wait, it's West and North Philly, and the name is Vanessa Brown. She's your girl. Okay, our question is, often young persons are elected but do not have a voice in whatever group or setting that they are. How do we amplify the voice of young elected officials, youth leaders, community development people who are being introduced in a new body of government where there are a lot of incumbents and people who's been around for a very long time? How do you get your voice heard when you're a rookie, so to speak? Other topics that we were discussing were training for Generation X, preparing for 2012, because there's going to be a lot of new things going on, especially with the global side of the world. So we want to know, how can we train for that? And lastly, the baby boomers' retirement jobs and also raising money. Those were the issues that our table spoke about.
Thank you. And we'll come back to that issue again of letting your voice be heard as a young, aspiring elected official or city commissioner, and also going back to age discrimination and education.
Good afternoon. My name is Howard Franklin. I'm from Atlanta by way of Detroit. And our table went through a number of different issues. And I'm going to just run through them quickly and give you a quick synopsis. We talked a little bit about getting a job versus higher education and what that meant to our families who had culturally been encouraged to seek employment. We talked about minority participation and how that's different for younger entrepreneurs as opposed to older entrepreneurs who've kind of had some time to learn the game and to get or to build relationships with corporate America. We talked about inadequate preparation for success in college and in the job field, and in a number of ways how young people through secondary education, through college, are given the tools to actually compete in school or at work, but don't have the cultural understanding. I think one of the other tables talked about this as well, but the cultural understanding to excel and to be brought along and to find mentors. And we also talked about access to resources. And the one thing that I would say was the underlying component to everything we talked about was kind of this cultural education, something aside from and in addition to the book learning that we get, through our programs, through our schools, through our teachers, but, learning some of the nuances that we don't necessarily have access to when it comes to playing the game. Thank you.
Table wrap. Good afternoon. My name is Sheila McNeil. I am a city council member in the city of San Antonio, Texas. And our group today talked about participation. The history of our community says that we don't participate at the level that we should. So we were concerned about that today. But of course, with Barack Obama as our nominee, a Democratic nominee and the first African American to get this level in the presidential, as we move forward to the election, that has risen. That's changing, I think, and I think it's changing the face of participation. We're getting better. We hope it stays that way, and young emerging leaders have to continue to encourage that. But some of the things we talked about were education is key to that. It's educating our community and letting them know how important getting involved in the process is. And then one other thing as we look forward, as young and emerging leaders look forward, we have to start looking at bridging the gap between our brown brothers and sisters. While the African American community continues to, the growth of the African American community continues to level out and be flat or go down, the Hispanic community is one of the largest communities, the fastest growing communities in our nation. We have to figure out a way to bridge the gap. I'm the only African American council member in the city of San Antonio. City of San Antonio is about 60% Hispanic. In order for me to get something from my black community, I got to partner with my Hispanic brothers and sisters. And as they grow, we're going to all have to do that and bridge the gap between the Hispanic community, our brown brothers and sisters, and the black community so that we can continue to progress and get those things we need for our communities. I represent the historic black community, although 40 to 45% of my community is Hispanic. So, that is happening in our community, and as we look forward, we're going to have to really look at that issue as we become emerging leaders in this community. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. And I think your table actually brings up a good point, because as we think about emerging leaders and running for office and determining what office that you're qualified for and that you believe you'd be able to win, we have to think about the changing demographics of the United States, and especially in California, a lot of the areas that were currently represented by black congresswomen, those areas are changing to more and more higher Latino population. And so we have to think about that. If you decide to run, it's not necessarily that you have to run in a quote-unquote black district. The area that I represent is, used to be a majority black district, but it's changing now in Pasadena as well. And so we need to think about that as we move forward. Next table.
Yes, my name is Kevin Waters, Soil and Water Commission in Palm Coast, Florida. We discussed at our table the problems that we're having with our minority students in Florida with receiving special needs certificates. And when it's time for them to move on to college, they cannot go to college because, of course, you need a high school standard diploma. So right now we're trying to discuss as far as how to create a program to allow those kids, if you're identified at an early age, to be able to create a program to allow those kids, to transfer over to be able to get a high school diploma. So once they graduate, they won't get caught in a situation where they have to go back and get a GED to be able to go to college. So that's what we discussed.
Thank you. And we actually have a young elected official here, state representative from Florida, so perhaps later on he can address your question.
Hello, my name is Frances Lee. I'm originally from Gulfport, Mississippi, but I've been in the Washington, D.C. area for a few years now, and I am representing Legacy Incorporated. It's a nonprofit designed to help high school students transition into college. But the issues at this table, we were discussing redlining and the lack of economic development in African American communities. We've noticed that a lot of individuals who make it successfully tend to move away from the area in which they grew up in, and that way, and when that happens, you take away the economic stimulus that you would have. I guess I'm lost for words. You take that money, you put it elsewhere versus reinvesting it into your own community, and that's one big problem. And another one was that if we did that, and a lot of individuals had businesses in their own areas, then we wouldn't have so many check cashing places. We'll have more banks and other businesses in the area. In addition to that, if we had a mentorship for individuals who were interested in starting their own businesses, then we would have more businesses in the African American community as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Donald Hughes. I'm a senior economics major at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, and I also have the pleasure of serving as a Congressional Black Caucus Foundation Walmart Emerging Leaders intern for this semester. Thank you. I had the pleasure of sitting at a table with individuals from various backgrounds. We had someone who was involved with social work. We also have an individual who is involved with the school system and two current interns. So obviously, or maybe not obviously, our focus was on education. And just for the sake of not reiterating what has already been said, I'm just going to say we concur with everything that has been said about education, but we want to also bring up the point that there's this issue of government accountability versus personal responsibility. And when we create a plan of action to address the disparities that our communities face in education, we have to not only look at what the government's responsibility is, but what our personal responsibility is to educate our own community. So thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Maurice Hawkins. I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Relations for Norfolk State University, home of the mighty Spartans. Behold the green and gold. And at our table, we discussed the need to improve our grassroots organizing. We noticed in the Republican National Convention, certain speakers at their convention made light of community organizing. I think community organizing is at the core of rebuilding our communities. So I think what we need to look at with community organizing is that if we have improved our grassroots efforts, these can be used as staging grounds to address a myriad of issues that are affecting people of color and people who are economically downtrodden throughout our nation. And I think what should occur today is that we should create an email distribution list from this event so all of us can stay in touch with one another, so as the emerging leaders move forward in their careers, we can continue to communicate with one another, exchange ideas, so we can benefit our communities. Because there are a lot of issues affecting our people in this nation. It's not just education, it's not just healthcare, it's not just voter suppression. There are a lot of issues. But if we take the intellectual talents in this room, from the tradition of W.B. Du Bois, the talented 10th, and we go back into our local communities and lead, we can make a significant impact in the 21st century. I believe Senator Obama is showing us the way, whether he becomes president or not, because we must look at the reality that he may not be elected, but his ideology and his vision for America must continue whether he's president or not.
Thank you.
Right. I just want to make a quick note. CBCF, the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, is a 501c3. It's a nonpartisan organization. And it sounds like this brother has nominated himself to start a Facebook page. So if you want to see him after this event, he will act on everything he just said.
Table right. This is kind of funny. I'm Sean Connor with the Republican National Committee. But formerly a city commissioner in Oakland, advising the mayor on youth issues. But our conversation was more broad and contextual about shared governance and shared leadership. And the conversation that we kind of had at our table all revolved around how do we construct intergenerational spaces and places where those who have led can also teach us who are getting ready to lead. And kind of have that relationship go back and forth. And also one of the things that came up was how those of us who are younger who lead teams that are older, some of those conflicts that happen as a result of that. And I know all of us have had, our Pandora up at our desk and the older person comes by and turns it down and it's like, well, I'm getting my work done. So just how do we interact intergenerationally to provide leadership to our community? And so that was kind of the contextual conversation that we had.
And I believe we have one more table in the back.
Sure.
Two more tables. Okay.
I'm going to come back.
Good afternoon. My name is Cedric Richardson. I'm a soldier. I work for you. And I guess what we were talking about here at our table was an apathy and ignorance towards education. How there is a divide between those of us who are educated and how much further they go. Michael Eric Dyson said yesterday that he can see poverty from where he lives. I thought that was a very interesting comment. I guess on average, people with degrees make, I guess, about $1 million more than those who don't. And in our community, we have glorified, I guess, ignorance, and we're trying to figure out exactly how to wrestle that to the ground. That's pretty much what we talked about.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ajwa Ansa, and I am a D.C. lobbyist, former congressional staffer. We had a very eclectic group here and had a productive conversation with elected officials, lobbyists, and congressional staff. David Johns is just awesome working for Senator Kennedy on the Help Committee. Just had to let that. Give him a round of applause because he is policy advisor doing big things over there. But we identified 5 broad topics that I heard around the room here: housing, healthcare, education, the economy, and national security, including a new politics to deal with the new risk that we're facing today. But what we also wanted to do was turn the conversation to more of a action-oriented conversation and to begin the discussion with the question posed to all of us: what do we do post-election? Specifically, where do we go? What is our post-election strategy? And that's something that we need to discuss regardless of who wins this election. We need to be prepared to address, confront, or support the presidential candidate. So that's something that I think we all sort of agreed on as being an important step, an important conversation that we need to have, that can't wait, that needs to happen now.
Thank you. And so based on the comments, and we have a cheat sheet up here, as you stated, again, it seems like most of us are discussing issues around healthcare, education, the economy, housing, and also just, what it means to be a young, up-and-coming, emerging professional. Did I miss someone's table? I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hi, most of our table was on the late freight, so we do apologize.
That's
we didn't
okay.
get as much of a dialogue as we wanted to get going. However, it's a wonderful opportunity for me to acknowledge that while I was here 4 years ago, and I'm technically over the age limit that they talked about with the discrimination, I'd have to piggyback on some of the ideas about particularly the bilingual, the getting together with our Latino brothers and sisters. Hablo español, I'm a Spanish-speaking teacher, and I welcome the opportunity for us to take that next step in making that move, because behind our numbers are power. And if we can get that going, then please, by all means, do it. I'm from the Los Angeles area. The Pasadena community is where I've taught before. So please, anybody, if you have affiliations there, let me know after, because I'm just dying to get an opportunity to really be more proactive in that vein.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I am Sharon Sanders Brooks. I'm on the City Council in Kansas City, Missouri, and former state legislator, and I'm just here to be supportive of the emerging leaders.
Thank you. So as I was saying, moving to a discussion of action-oriented solutions that we can come out with today, I wanted to go back briefly to the question that this table had regarding the special needs, addressing the special needs certificate issues in Florida. And as I stated earlier, we have Florida State Representative Mr. Brannon, so I want to know, would he like to address that question? Do you want to restate your question, sir? One second.
Sorry about that. Again, want to know if there was any programs available for students who are identified as special needs students early, in middle school and in the 9th grade years of high school. It's a program as far as allowing them to transfer over to receiving a high school diploma once they graduate from the high school.
Transition when they leave 9th grade, so that when they get to high school, they're hopefully they'll get their degree, right? Okay. Well, one of the things that we in the state of Florida have been trying to do is have a program that is not, I guess what you say, where it's trying to get them to a point where they are, I guess what the word would be, functioning at a normal level, so they no longer need to be in special needs classes. So by the time they reach high school, they're able to be in classes with everyone else. If we're talking about the ADA and not ADA, ADHD. But there is one program which got cut out of the budget this year that was for transition after high school into normal life. So we have a terrible budget year in Florida.
As does everyone.
Yeah, unfortunately, when we're cutting, it's not my party that's doing the cutting. So some of the projects that we wanted to see kept, like that project, which was one that was called Transitions, was totally eliminated. So hopefully I can get some help next session, try to get that put back in. So I definitely contact you when we get back to Florida.
And Oscar, could you also share your background with everyone?
Yes, my name is Oscar Brannon. I'm a state representative in the state of Florida. I represent the 103rd District, which is Miami Gardens, Opelika, Carroll City, Triple C, Rick Ross represent. And I'm only playing. No. I was elected to the legislature in February. Before that, I was a city councilman for 6 years on the City of Miami Gardens City Council and also the vice mayor. And before that, I worked in the Senate, and I'm 31 years old. So, and along with Andrew Gillum, worked really hard to create this YEO, Young Elected Officials Network, which has been wonderful and has helped us to groom, allowed us to set up things. I've set up things in my own community, trying to encourage young people to get involved and eventually run for office. So hopefully we can motivate them. And something was mentioned that I think is my passion, which is stopping that brain drain. In my area, I have a predominantly African-American community. It's a working-class community, and many of my friends have gone to college and left and moved away somewhere else. And it really hurts the bottom line. You know, businesses, if there's no one that they can hire, they're leaving. They're going to Atlanta. They're coming to Atlanta, DeKalb County Commissioner. And, we really are trying to keep those people here and attract people. So, if you all want to move to Miami, South Beach is a really great place. Just come holler at me. I'm right over here. Thank you.
So moving back to the question that was posed earlier, what do we do post-election around these 5 topics, the economy, education, healthcare, and housing? Would someone like to pose a solution or an action item that they see that we can do post-election and moving forward? Sir?
Good morning. My name is Jamal Miller, and I work for the Maryland State Teachers Association, but I'm also a commissioner for the Minority Business Opportunities Commission in Prince George's County. And basically, I know it's a real trite statement to get involved, but basically get involved at the most local level. We're talking about elected positions, and that is great, but there are a bevy of other positions that are out there that you can get involved in with your civic organizations, for instance, or even appointed commissions, appointed situations, or other things that you can do. You have in most places you have a Democratic committee or a Republican committee that runs a lot of things. They have a lot of power, That's an entree for you. Myself, my position is appointed. Getting next to some of the legislators, they have appointments on different commissions and different things all the time, and they're looking for talented people. All you have to do is let them know that you are interested in a particular thing, and they will put you on. And that is a great way to get involved and have an impact on all the things that we talked about on a local and on a state level. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that'd like to address that question?
Hi, I'm Kevin Jenkins. I work for the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Thank you for having me. This forum is great. The whole series is excellent. Thank you again. I think that we have so many teachers in the room. I really think that something practical is that we should sit down and take a look at the curriculums that we're giving kids at the grassroots level. And I think that's something practical that we can kind of move forward to do as the new administration comes forward. You have the Department of Education. It's something that can trickle down from the top bottom, that we can look at these curriculums, make sure they're cohesive and effective for the students that are enrolled in these programs.
And just as a side note, the Young Elected Officials Network has a education committee, and just last week we met in San Jose, California, and that committee will be composing a policy letter that's actually going to go to Senator Kennedy about the No Child Left Behind revisions that are coming up in 2009, and all of us will be signing it as a collective body representing the various school boards and city councils, county councils, and state legislatures that we represent. And so if anyone here that's not already a part of the YEO network, please contact, actually Oscar, you can see Oscar after this meeting if you'd like to be involved in helping us to compose that letter.
As someone who writes, negotiates, and will be working on the reauthorization of No Child Left Behind. One thing that's been particularly difficult is that when we deal with reauthorization, we often look for comments from the community. So organizations like the National Education Association will give us comments. Many times they don't reflect a lot of the conversation that's happening in this room. And what I mean by that is that they don't speak to the needs of low-income and minority children writ large. And so it's really important, I just want to echo what Jackie's saying, it's really important that we don't just make these comments, but we find ways to formally submit them to the individuals that are responsible for negotiating and enacting these types of changes and reforms, right? The issue of special education is a critical one. It's not something that we deal with in the context of No Child Left Behind. IDEA is a bill that works on students with disabilities and makes sure that they are screened early, that they have access to services. But just going forward, it's important that we continue to have these conversations, but that we also get engaged actively in the process of communicating with our policymakers. The issue earlier we talked about, national standards, is a really difficult one. A lot of my Republican colleagues won't even entertain the conversation. It's something that's seen as a state right. But because it's not happening at a national level doesn't mean it can't happen at the local level, right? We can push that conversation in the Florida State Legislature in the way in which we can't do it right now at the federal level, right? So I just want to say all of those things. If anybody wants to talk about this, I'll be happy to help you help me. I'll be here afterwards as well.
So piggybacking off of David's comment, many of the people in this room are involved and are actively involved in numerous organizations themselves, but how do we get others to get actively engaged? And David, could you also address, are individuals allowed to make, to send in their comments on the revisions for
Yes, with most major pieces of legislation, particularly those that come through the Help Committee, any individual is able to submit comments. You can do that. I'll give you my card, but if you just go to the Help Committee website, anytime we put out a piece of legislation, there's a comment period. We usually try and do it in 30 days. If it comes from an organization, great. If it comes from an individual, it's great as well. But just know that when we get things in bulk, the more we get it, the more attention is paid to it.
So how do we get others actively engaged? Because I know all of us are victims of, we volunteer 5 times over, and there's some people that aren't doing anything, yet they love to complain and tell you what you're not doing. So, so how do we get others to become actively engaged in the process?
2 things: strategic partnerships and being a cheerleader. The strategic partnership part is align yourself with organizations in your community that share your vision or have similar ideas to improve your local community. Nonprofit agencies are an excellent area to do that. I do a lot of volunteering with the March of Dimes. Every year I travel to Richmond, Virginia, and I lobby on behalf of the March of Dimes on their issues. But I bring in my expertise as a former special education teacher, because when you look at premature birth, that's one of the chief reasons for students entering special education, because of how they come into this world. So partnerships is important. And number 2, to be a cheerleader. You have to be a leader. You have to go out here and cultivate people. A lot of people have to be motivated to do the right thing. It's easier not to do anything. It's easier not to be engaged. So you have to be the rah-rah person. You got to be the person saying, hey, you got to make that phone call to make sure they get up and go to that community service project. You got to make sure they're attending that civic meeting. So by developing leadership and strategic partnerships, I think you can get more people to be engaged in the process of empowering their communities.
Thank you.
My name is Lee Maya, DeKalb County Commissioner in the great state of Georgia. Perception is reality for everyone, and for any issue that you are pushing or any kind of a topic you're trying to engage people in or get people to move forward in it. If it's not attractive for them, they're not gonna participate in it. If you're not well organized, they're not going to participate in it. And so it has to be something that engages them, that brings them in. And too many times I've seen organizations, formed or some kind of issues that's being pushed, and people are just not organized. And so if I'm gonna take time out of my busy schedule to get connected with you, I want to know that at the end of the day, something fruitful is going to come about. as a result of that. And so when you're talking about organizing people, you have to be educated, you have to be well engaged in that issue, and it just plain out has to be attractive to folk. You know, that's just the reality. So it's not like a set formula, but if people can't look and see what you're doing and say, you know what, I want to be a part of that, let's move that forward, then it's going to be a tough situation. Another thing is, talking about community organizing, a lot of times when you think about community organizing, you're thinking about organizing people with a limited or a small voice, and you're trying to get people, for example, I was a community organizer trying to rally people who don't have health insurance to speak up, you know, and make their voice heard, you know, to give affordable access to health care. And that was a tough move, trying to get people who typically are not engaged in the political process, to get them engaged and informed. But what we don't do a good job of is engaging us in this room, community organizing amongst us. We don't come together enough to make things happen. And the reality is we are the movers and the shakers in our communities, and we just frankly don't come together enough. Some people are from Georgia and not see you when I come to D.C. So I'm talking about myself as well. And so in our own individual communities, the key stakeholders and emerging leaders, we got to come together more to move something forward that people can follow us.
Right here in the middle.
I'm sorry. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Pascal Leon. I'm with Planned Parenthood. I know many of you spoke up and said education, it should be our priority for our community. And as a community organizer, we had a panel just the other day, whereas 1 in 4 teens has an STI and 1 in 2 black teens, young females, has a sexually transmitted infection. And so we're here today, especially because we have over 5 million supporters and activists across the country, many of which are teens, who advocate on their behalf. But as he just mentioned, we don't have elected officials who are engaged in bringing the conversations of healthy sex ed, healthy curriculum in our full education curriculum. And so we are putting together elected officials network for electeds who are interested in combating issues like the high disparities in health care for African Americans. So feel free to reach out to myself if you're interested to work with us, because we are very interested in partnering with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Timothy Evans. I'm actually new to D.C. I moved from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm actually doing Teach for America here. And one of the things that I have been able to see as teaching is the ability to mentor. As Lee May mentioned, the organization is a very key point of that. But at the same time, individually, I believe in each individual, each one of you taking one person on, because at the same time, the real difference is the ability to be able to change one life. And in my teaching, as I'm teaching these years, I'm actually trying to pursue to change 15 students' lives. But at the same time, if I can just change one person's life from the ground, I feel like that is the biggest impact that I can make. But I think that one of the biggest things, as you're mentoring, you're building into these kids and the future leaders of America, the idea that going to college is not something that someone else on TV does or something that someone in a distant country does, but it's right here in your school. It's right here in your neighborhood that people around you have done it. And you have the right, you have the responsibility, and you have everything that you need around you in order to do it. So I think it's imperative that we as individuals, as leaders, up-and-coming leaders, continue to aspire to mentor individuals, at least one person. One person is what matters the most sometimes.
We're going to take about 4 more comments, but piggybacking off of what he said, just kind of jump on the soapbox for a second. I'm totally a firm believer that I'm a product of my mentors.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that I'm a product of my mentors, and although I may not join I'm a part of mentor organizations, but additionally, if I meet someone on the street and they seem interested and want help, I'll offer it. So I think that in taking his charge, if we could at least inspire one child, just one, a piece, exactly, that would be a great help to fighting these issues that we listed.
Again, Sean Connor. The quick things I thought about from a very tactical standpoint as a former community organizer. One of the things I think would be very helpful for me is that a thought or a conversation about the next year's emerging leader, there being a very tactical space of community organizing, of messaging, of some of those really tactical things that some people don't get in their local communities, so a very tactical piece. Also, no matter who becomes president, I think it's important for us to follow up with that person, because whether we voted for him or not, they're in the White House, and we have to have those relationships. And so that's one of the things from a tactical standpoint. If my candidate doesn't get in, making sure that I'm able to hold the other person accountable for the things that I care about and the things that I want and need. And then lastly, somehow I'd love to see some more structured intergenerational conversations. I heard that they did it in Denver with some of the older leaders and younger leaders, and they had this beautiful conversation about what they were doing and what we were doing, and it just worked and really had some good results. And so some more formalized, not so formal panel, but, not that it's easy to get 5 members of Congress and like 25 students, but just some conversations that aren't as structured, just to have those, this is what we're working on, this is what you're working on, how can we partner and work together? So.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gina Calder, and I serve on the Board of Aldermen in New Haven, Connecticut, which is our city council. Thank you. And I'm also a member of YEO Network, so I want to put in a plug for that amazing organization. But one of the things that I think is very important when we talk about community organizing is meeting people where they are. And I think that was a huge proponent and kind of reason why I was able to be successful in my run for our Board of Aldermen. I didn't, I'm wearing this now because of, the environment that I'm in and where I am, and this is appropriate. But I couldn't necessarily go out and knock doors with this outfit on and think that people would feel like, I felt like I was part of the community and they could talk to me and relate to me and I could relate to them. So I think that is something that we have to think about when we're talking about engaging people and explaining an issue and trying to get them attracted to it, meeting them where they are, having, realistic expectations about what they can do, what's going to be important to them, and the best way to communicate with people about what it is you're trying to do, why you think it's important for them to be a part of it. And, one of the things my Sora and I were just talking about a couple of minutes ago was kind of part of the brain drain issue as well, that some of us go back into our communities after, having quote unquote made it, and people kind of see the glitz and the glamour and feel like, oh, well, she doesn't care about us anymore. She went off and did all these big things, and now she just comes back to show off every now and again. But she doesn't really care. She doesn't really come and spend time and kind of pay her dues. So I think we need to think about that piece as well and kind of, making sure that we have credibility and being validated as community organizers, that we can meet people where they are, be on the ground level. It's not about, necessarily dumbing things down, but just, being where people are and where they feel comfortable relating with you.
Thank you. And we're actually running out of time, so we'll take these last 2 1-minute or less comments. Actually 3. I'm sorry, you had your hand up for a long time. Last 3 comments, 1 minute or less.
Okay.
Please.
I'm Mark
And
Anthony
we'll
Thomas. I run a policy think tank and political magazine in New York City. And one thing I've realized is that our political leaders don't have awareness of every issue. So us who are on the outside, I think it's important for us to bring those issues in a very structured way to the forefront. One study we recently did, it was like a fun study, but it showed that New York City had lost 5,000 small businesses through the infiltration of chain stores over the last few years. So that's taking wealth outside of the city and taking it to corporate headquarters outside of New York. And it actually garnered like 23 different press stories, and now there have been committees created to study how to support small businesses. So just little things that are well-researched and have well-documentation may actually implement the change we need.
And right next to.
My name is Virgil Smith. I'm part of the Michigan legislature from out of Detroit. And piggybacking on what a number of folks have said when it comes to actually meeting folks where they're at, speaking their language, things of that nature, you got to go a step beyond. Where I'm from in my city, there is a big black flight that just leaves the city. And the reason why is because they feel, well, I've gotten a few dollars in my pocket, I can move across 8 Mile to greener pastures, or however they feel, or whatever reason in their head brings them to that decision. The problem that you have in that is that there's nobody left on that block for that young child to look at. So what are they looking at? Well, they're looking at the young guy down the street that could be doing Lord knows what, who does have a few dollars in his pocket, who ends up recruiting these young guys as soldiers. And next thing you know, it's like a cycle. We have the most busiest district and county court system in the country. They're coming in, it's like herding cattle, going from the county to upstate. Every day. It's a sad, sad state. My father's a judge down there, and I see it every single day. So one thing that I've been able to do is I'm from it. I live it, I breathe it, I'm happy in it. So I'm in these high schools every single day talking to these students. They see me, I can speak their language, but not only am I talking to them, I'm also organizing and I'm recruiting. So not only is the young guy down the street recruiting, I'm also recruiting. And then they see me because I'm still on the block. I ain't left, I ain't went nowhere. I'm safe there. I feel at peace there. I go across 8 Mile, I'm not safe there. I'm not at peace because the white folk across there, they don't want me out there. I got too many, some bad tendencies sometimes. So with that being said, you have to speak the language, you have to become it, and you have to organize it. And if you organize it, next thing you know, you'll start to see young guys. I've had young guys that have come up to me, I don't even remember, but they've come to me and said, based upon what you told me, now I'm at Michigan State University. Now I'm at University of Michigan. Now I'm at Eastern Michigan. They're going on doing all types of things. So it's not only that
15 seconds.
15 seconds? Yeah, I can get long-winded sometimes. It's the nature of the beast. So I guess that's it. I'll quit there.
Thank you. And then last comment here in the back.
Thank you for taking my comments. I don't know, it's wonderful to be back here. My name is Shivani Gaius-Meekins. I'm from Denver, Colorado, but I live in Beltsville, Maryland now. And as a multicultural individual, I just wanted to speak real quickly to the brown and black solidarity that we've got to begin building. I have an organization that I started in November of last year entitled Lágrimas for Justice, and it's to do just that. Lágrimas is a Spanish word for tears, so in essence, it's a cry for justice. If we continue fighting each other and working against or not together, our demise is inevitable. So I just wanted to speak to that and also to the intergenerational piece. I've had the honor and the pleasure to work with Dr. Vincent Harding, who lives in Denver, Colorado, and he started the Ambassadors of Hope project. So if you guys are interested, I'd love to talk to you about my work as the Movement Arts Coordinator in bringing intergenerational leadership to our young people and to be able to do so through contemplative practice, being dance, art, theater, whatever the case may be. It's like you say, it's meeting them where they are. I think also in speaking to the black and brown issues, if we can begin to utilize the arts as a sounding ground, because the music is intrinsic to who we are as people, as indigenous people, so the drum beat. If we can begin to find our commonalities, I think these cultural barriers can easily be at least pushed aside for a moment so we can come to the table and speak about the necessity of living as human beings on this planet as indigenous people to Mother Earth. So thank you very much for taking this. And again, my name is Shivani Meekins, Lágrimas for Justice.
Thank you very much for your comments. So as always, there's never enough time to completely finish these conversations, but I believe as David said earlier, they do not, or I'm sorry, this man right here, Maurice, said earlier, the conversation doesn't have to end here. So let me briefly ask, what states are represented here today? I know I heard California, Florida, North Carolina.
It's a great state of Louisiana.
Okay, so I was asking that question because I was going to suggest, I'm going to bring Dr. Tolson back up to conclude the program, but after we're done, if we could, break up, find people that are from your respective states so you could exchange contact information and continue this. And then also, we're going to collect the note cards for the report that's going to be written. So if you could please include your contact information on the back of the index cards that are on your table so we have that as well. And then perhaps we can use that to start the email listserv that someone suggested earlier. But thank you very much for being a part of this conversation today, and it was a pleasure speaking to all of you and moderating. Thank you.
Okay, give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you all so much. All right, next steps, everyone put your contact information on one of the index cards. We're gonna collect all that information. We'll be emailing all of you all. Also, we've had the video rolling this whole time, and we're going to take the video, transcribe it, and we're going to put together a report. We're going to come up with a name for that report, but we'll be asking all of your input for that. But the report essentially is going to give voice to young elected officials and policymakers. So it'll be a report that we can pass around so that we can show other people what young people are thinking, what we're after, and what our vision are. I want to just close with a few final remarks. I listened to a lot of what was going on, and one question that when we first started to get into the discussion portion, we talked about what do we do after the election, and I've been giving that some thought over the last few days because that question's come up quite a bit. But I think that all of us have to really think about where we are right now in this era in American history. Things are changing very, very rapidly. And when we look at Obama's campaign, we see a lot of things happening differently than they used to in the past. This is the first YouTube election. This is the first election where you can see any political ad, any gaffe that's made. This is the first election where this information is just so dynamic and is viral. This is the first election where people can contribute $25, and it doesn't seem like it's a drop in the bucket, but it seems like it's actually thrusting one person over the next one. We have to think about the fact that we're in a global economy right now. We have to think about the fact that everyone in this room has a capacity to do international trade, to do international business. That's crazy, but it's taking jobs away, but it's also creating new jobs. And so we have to decide which side we're going to be on. We also have to think about the fact that we are in a post-industrial information age. Markets are not dependent upon the physical production of goods right now. It's dependent upon the creation and manipulation of information. All of us have at our disposal. How many of y'all have a PDA in your pocket right now? Okay, so more than half of this room have the capacity to bring up any bill, any piece of legislation, any statement that's made, and know about it 10 minutes from now. So we have all this dynamic information at our disposal. We have to think about as young people who are about to inherit a universe that's much different than our parents. We have to think about how are we going to harness that power and not create new disparities, but create new opportunities for black people. So thank all of you all very much.
So, did you want to make an announcement? You want an announcement?
Thank you.
Oh, I was just going to say, so if you're from California, if you want to exchange information, just come up here, and I'm willing to do that. Did you have an announcement, Oscar?
Oh, I'm sorry. Anybody who would like to get the information about the Young Elected Officials Network, any of the policy papers that we put together, be on our email list, just come see me after I'll be right over here. And anybody from Florida, one time.
Thank you.
For my third graders about slavery in New York. At the time, Dr. Weaver was working with the Amistad Commission, and we spoke about, my interest and my frustrations. Essentially, I was tired of having conversations about why No Child Left Behind was not working. Dr. Weaver met the program administrator for the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's fellowship program and told me that I should apply. And that's really why I moved to D.C. and why I'm here now. She's currently at Princeton University and runs a program there that I'd like for her to talk to you guys about. And we're talking about, all of this is very relevant to the conversations we're having.
I just need to get your attention just for 1 minute. If I could just have everyone's attention, because this is very critical information that I want to share with you really quickly. Again, my name is Dr. Karen Jackson Weaver. I'm the Associate Dean of Academic Affairs and Diversity at Princeton's Graduate School, and I want to share 3 resources with you. We have a national alliance called the Leadership Alliance. If you go to Google, you can write it down. It's the leadershipalliance.org. It's a partnership between Ivy League institutions, HBCUs, Hispanic serving institutions, and tribal colleges. We provide funding for students to do research across the country at our home institutions. We pay for their stipend. We give them housing. We give them meals. And the application deadline should be sometime in February. You can go to the website, the Leadership Alliance, and get information. Princeton University Graduate School is a member of that alliance. In addition to the Leadership Alliance, Princeton itself has a summer program. I'm the director of that program. If you all know of undergraduate students who want to do research with a Princeton faculty member, we have a summer program. We particularly look for students from HBCUs and Hispanic serving institutions because we want those numbers to be higher in the professoriate. So if you know individuals who want to get their PhDs and they want to come do research with one of our scholars at Princeton, please let me know. I have information and literature. And finally, I'm here plugging for our master's and PhD programs. I've been around the conference all weekend talking about the fact that our master's and PhD programs are subsidized, which means your tuition and fees are covered, and we give you a living stipend for the majority of our master's and PhD programs. If you want to sign up to be on our mailing list or if you want a catalog, please see me. Thank you so much, and I hope to see each and every one of you next year. I'm right over here in the back.
She's going to be right at this back table, or they're going to mob you now. She shouldn't have said free school. It's a wrap.